Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an honor and a privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining me here as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, a little bit of television, especially when we do it here on the weekends. You know, here on the weekends, we're a little bit more relaxed. We just take a few topics. We don't really do a movie news feed or anything on the weekends. That's really from Monday through Friday. But I do have a few topics and questions pulled out. How do you get a topic or a question on the John Campea Show? Simply just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less. I got a few topics picked out here. Then we're going to go to your live questions, so let's jump right into it. And the first topic today comes to us from Luca, who writes, "Hi, John. Huge fan. Thank you so much, man. You're the best. My question is about the limited release of Isle of Dogs. I read that it's only releasing in 27 theaters, and then it's expanding from there. What determines a limited release? How does that work? Is it a lack of faith from the studio?" Okay, here's the thing. Yeah, Isle of Dogs opened this weekend, 27 theaters across the country. I went to go see it last night. I'll give my review of it later. A little bit of a sneak peek. It's pretty good. Not as good as I was hoping it would be, but it's pretty good. But I'll talk about that in my review later today. So is a limited release a sign of a lack of faith from the studio? No, it's just a release strategy. What they call it is rolling it out. That's kind of the term that they use in the theater industries. They roll it out. So some movies, they believe, don't have, by nature, they can be the best movies in the world, but by nature may not instantly connect on a marketing level with a lot of people. So what the strategy becomes is put it out in a bunch of theaters first. Let reviews and word of mouth and audiences in those cities start talking about it and hype it up and build it up, and then it rolls out even further into a wider release and then a wider release. It's just that each movie has to be marketed differently, and for some movies, and let's face it, a movie like Isle of Dogs isn't going to just connect on a marketing level with a mass amount of people. So what they do is they employ a different marketing strategy. Has nothing to do with the studio's faith in the movie. They believe in the movie. They believe Isle of Dogs is a really good movie. They think if people see it, they'll believe it's a real movie. But you gotta come up with the best marketing strategy to get people to see it. And for a number of films, the best marketing strategy is rolling it out gradually. Start with a limited release, let positive word of mouth build, let online buzz get going about it, then roll it out into more cities, and then eventually you get a wide release. So, yeah, it has nothing to do with the studio's faith in the film. It's just that with every individual movie, you got to pick what unique marketing strategy will work, and there's like 50 different strategies. Which marketing strategy would work best for this particular film? And in some cases, like Isle of Dogs, a slower rollout is probably their best strategy. So that's all it is. It's just a marketing strategy, nothing to do with faith in the movie. All right, let's move on now to the next topic. And the next topic today comes to us from Matthew Yamasaki, who writes, "Do you think there's a solid chance that Bucky will be one of the characters who bites the dust in Infinity War? Cap seems to be more likely, but wouldn't it be even more devastating and impactful to the audience and Cap's character if his best buddy, who he finally got back, were the one to go? Thanks, and keep up the great work." Well, thanks a lot for the question, Matthew. And you know what? That is one of the names that nobody ever brings up. About whenever the discussion comes up about who could die not in Captain America, if who could die in Infinity War, we'll talk about Vision, we'll talk about Cap, we'll talk about Thor, we'll talk about Black Widow. The name Bucky very rarely comes up in the conversation. We don't discuss the Bucky option very often. Now, I think part of the reason for that is that Bucky flies under the radar a little bit, but also because there's this belief out there that Captain America is going to die, and then Bucky will become the new Captain America. So there's a bunch of people out there who think, well, it can't be Bucky because he needs to be there to pick up the shield after Captain America dies. That assumes a hell of a lot for that theory to work. That assumes a hell of a lot. You know what? I like where your thinking's at, Matthew, because you know me. One of my things is, if you're going to have a death, give a good narrative purpose. The best narrative purposes are the ones that devastate the audience and devastates the characters within, even if it's a specific level. That's why the other week I was talking about Pepper Potts maybe dying in Infinity War. Because of there's no other character that could die in the MCU that would have a more profound and deeper impact on Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, than the death of Pepper Potts. Captain America dying would hurt Tony. Black Widow dying would hurt Tony. Yeah. But none of them compare to the amount of devastation and how big of an impact it would have on Tony if Pepper died. And if you want to look at it on that level, then the notion of Bucky died, I think you can say the same for Captain America with Bucky. There is nobody else in the MCU that could die that would have a more profound effect on Cap than Bucky. His lifelong best friend, the guy who used to protect him. And the guy he's now been trying to protect for several movies. That's a really interesting way of looking at it. So you know what? If we're going to set an over and under on the idea about the possibilities of Bucky dying, I like this theory. I think it's plausible. And I'll set a solid 31% chance on Bucky dying. Now that means it's likely that he'll live, but I think a 31% chance that Bucky dies. I'd be curious to hear you guys over and under. Now, before any of you who might be yelling at your computer monitors, but John, Sebastian Stan has a 7-film deal or an 8-film deal, whatever, with Marvel. That means he can't die. No, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything at all. Terrence Howard had a 3-film deal. And where's he? Hugo Weaving had a 4-film deal. Where is he? Remember, just because an actor signs a multiple film deal with the MCU doesn't mean the MCU has to use them. All it means is that if the MCU wants to use them, they have to come and appear in the film. That's all it means. So Sebastian Stan can have a 45-film deal, and it doesn't matter at all. Doesn't matter in the least if the MCU doesn't want to use them. It just means that the MCU has the flexibility to use them in their movies if they so choose. But it does not mean they have to go out and get him and put the character in the movie. So that doesn't mean anything. So yes, I feel good setting a 31% chance that Bucky dies. I want to know what you guys think. Jump down to the comment section. Let me know what you guys are thinking. All right, let's move on now to the third topic on this Saturday. And the third topic today comes to us from Bryan Lye, who writes, recently, Spielberg commented on movies produced by streaming services, saying that they only get token qualifications for Oscar consideration by showing for 1 week in LA and New York, I assume, based on Academy criteria, and that they should be in Emmy runs instead. However, doesn't a large number of indie films that get Oscar nominations also get the same token consideration? Wide releases often only come after Oscar buzz is generated, at times months later, not before. All right, thanks a lot for the question, Brian. And yeah, so Steven Spielberg has caused a little bit of a buzz, and we'll get to that in just a second, basically saying that he doesn't believe, and we'll look at his comments specifically here in a moment, but the basic gist of this whole thing is that Steven Spielberg believes that, streaming movies should be qualified for Emmy Award wins, not for Oscars. All right, that's basically what he's saying. And when he's talking about token consideration, what he means is really the only thing, there are a few other little things, but basically speaking, the only thing a movie has to do to qualify for the Academy Awards is play for 1 week in any theater that the public can buy tickets to in LA and New York. If you do that, you qualify for the Oscars. That's an oversimplification, but that's generally the gist, right? So anyway, Spielberg comes out and he basically says that movies like Netflix and other streaming services, they should be in the Emmy races, not in the Oscar races. They more qualify as TV movies as opposed to movies per se. Now, here's Steven Spielberg's specific comments, all right? And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I see where he's coming from. I think he has a valid argument. I disagree with him, but I think you'd be foolish to just dismiss what he's saying because he does make a valid point, even though I disagree ultimately. But here's what Steven Spielberg said. Spielberg said the following. I don't believe that films that are just given token qualifications in a couple of theaters for less than a week should qualify for the Academy Award nominations. Fewer and fewer filmmakers are going to struggle to raise money or to compete at Sundance and possibly get one of the specialty labels to release their films theatrically. And more of them are going to let the SVOD video business finance their films, maybe with the promise of a slight 1-week theatrical window to qualify for awards. Now, here's the big thing that he said, though. He followed up by saying, but in fact, once you commit to a television format, you're a TV movie. Now, at the heart of a lot of what Spielberg is talking about here is the fact that, look, there is a difference between theatrical and for home video consumption. Spielberg is saying something that a lot of people believe, that there should be a recognized distinction between that. You know who else agrees with Spielberg on that? Christopher Nolan. The dude behind, The Dark Knight Rises, Dunkirk, Inception, all that kind of stuff. He was talking recently, just this past year, about Netflix and the war against, theatrical and wanting to maintain the integrity of the theatrical movie. And Christopher Nolan said this. Christopher Nolan said, Netflix has a bizarre aversion to supporting theatrical films. They have this mindless policy of everything having to be simultaneously streamed and released, which is obviously an untenable model for theatrical presentation. He goes on to say, I think the investment that Netflix is putting into interesting filmmakers and interesting projects would be more admirable if it weren't being used as some kind of bizarre leverage against shutting down theaters. It's so pointless. I don't really get it. The only platform I'm interested in talking about is theatrical exhibition. So you get guys like Spielberg, you get guys like Nolan, you get guys like Martin Scorsese, despite the fact that Martin Scorsese has a film coming out on Netflix pretty soon, who have talked about this topic before, about maintaining this distinction and the understanding of what a theatrical film is versus what a TV movie is. Now, to Steven Spielberg's point, and we talked about this the other day on the show because somebody brought it up in the live chat. To Steven Spielberg's point, there is something to be said about, look, if a movie is made for people to consume on their television screens, then that's a TV movie. If a movie is made specifically to broadcast on a television network, and Netflix is, in fact, a television network, really, then that's the same thing the way it's always been. When a TV network, whether it's ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, whatever, have produced a movie for broadcast on their television network, that has qualified for the Emmys, not the Oscars. There's a distinction, Spielberg would say, between TV movies and theatrical movies. And just to go back to that one comment that Spielberg said again, in fact, once you commit to a television format, you are a TV movie. He makes a point. He does raise a valid point here. This is the same way it's always been. Movies made for television broadcast are Emmy considered, not Oscar considered. There's always been this distinction, but for some reason now that Netflix has come along and some other streaming services as well, their movies get to be considered for Oscars. Well, if their movies get to be considered for Oscars, why haven't for the past 50 years television movies been considered for that? They've been considered for Emmys. And by the way, if you read Spielberg's full thing, he's not disparaging on Emmys or TV at all. He thinks the Emmys are incredibly great. He just sees a distinction. There's theatrical release, there's that. Now, I disagree with Steven on this because it all comes down to intention. You get some movies that were made specifically, and maybe even with the idea in mind that they would get theatrical releases. So these movies are made the exact same way that a theatrical movie is made, except maybe they can't get distribution then. Maybe then they couldn't get anybody to pick up their film. Maybe no studio believed in the film. Look at the last Cloverfield movie that went straight to Netflix. Ultimately, Paramount just lost faith in the film. They didn't believe anybody would go to see it. They didn't believe it was good enough to get word of mouth, so they dumped it off on Netflix. But that movie was made for theatrical release. It just didn't get it. So if it's made with the same intention in mind, like it was never made from the beginning, they didn't start making Cloverfield with the intention of it being a TV movie. They made it just like a theatrical film. Should it not then be considered for the Oscars? Does ultimately being qualifying for the Oscars only come down to whether or not a distributor thinks your movie is good enough or marketable enough to get picked up? Let's take a movie like Mud, right? Mud's an example of a movie that is a great movie, but maybe couldn't have made money in the theaters. Even though it was great, maybe it couldn't have made money. So it goes and lives on another streaming service. Should it be disqualified from the Oscars just because it didn't get a theatrical distribution? And look, I'm not going to, even though I disagree with Spielberg, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's a clear answer. It's not. Spielberg, Nolan, others have raised some very valid points. And I think you're being stubborn if you don't acknowledge that they have some very valid points that have to be wrestled with. I still disagree with them, but I think it's a valuable discussion to have. I think it's a worthwhile discussion to have. Because if Netflix original programming qualifies for Emmys, is it not then a TV network? Like, Netflix shows get nominated for Emmys, just like ABC's television shows get nominated for Emmys. But then when ABC then does a movie, it is also for the Emmys. Why does Netflix's television shows qualify for Emmys, but their movies qualify for Oscars? It seems to be a bit of a double standard. That has to be addressed. And hey, look, this is still a brand new thing. These new streaming services and everything, this is brand new. Give the industry some time to really figure it out. Give people like you and me a chance to really kind of figure out how should this all shake out. And then maybe we'll find ourselves agreeing with a Spielberg and a Tarantino and a Nolan, I should say, that there should be a clear distinction between theatrical and for home broadcast movies. Or maybe we'll find ourselves agreeing with other people, thinking, no, like a movie is a movie is a movie, whether it's placed on the big screen or not. I think we're still really too young in the inception of this whole streaming service stuff to really have a clear picture yet. Like I said, right now I lean toward disagreeing with Spielberg, but I'm sure a bunch of people lean towards agreeing with them. But even though I disagree with Spielberg, you got to acknowledge he raises some valid points that we should be addressing and tackling and wrestling through. So anyway, that's just the way I see it. Okay, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Jay Gangliani, who writes, "Hey John, big fan of the show from Hong Kong." Oh, thanks so much, Jay. And just spent like 2 months in Hong Kong. "Recently, I read an article on Variety which stated that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's new film Rampage was tracking for an opening weekend of $35 million. Isn't this opening weekend a bit soft considering it stars arguably the biggest movie star on the planet right now?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, Jay. And yeah, I've seen those articles. I think that's a little bit low, 35. I think it's going to open somewhere in the 40 range. But look, here's the thing. Yes, The Rock is the biggest movie star in the world. However, that doesn't mean you put The Rock in any movie, it will open to $80 million. What it does mean, I think, is the relative improvement that it will make in relation to how the movie would have done without him. Okay? It's not about The Rock being in a movie, therefore it'll automatically open at 80. I think The Rock is in the movie, therefore it'll probably automatically open 15% higher or 20% higher than it would have without him. So let's, for argument's sake, say that Rampage opens to $40 million. What I believe that means is that if you didn't have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in there, the biggest movie star in the world, that movie may have opened to $28 million. You take a movie that opened to $100 million without Dwayne Johnson, put Dwayne Johnson in it, that movie opens at 115 or 120. So it's not about put The Rock in, it means opening at 100 million. I think it's more like you put The Rock in and it means you're going to open 15 to 20% higher than you would have without him. And let's face it, Rampage is a ridiculous notion for a movie. I mean, I remember when they first announced it, we were like, what the hell? You're the one about the lizard and the wolf and the ape wrecking buildings? You're going to make a movie based on that? It's a preposterous notion for a movie. If you had told me 2 years ago that you're going to make a Rampage movie and that it could potentially open to $40 million opening weekend, I would have said you were nuts. But you do it, and it stars Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Suddenly it opening at $40 million is not only a possibility, but probably a probability at this point. So again, does it seem soft for a movie with The Rock? Maybe, but just imagine what its opening projections would be if it wasn't Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in there. Let's say for whatever reason, I don't know, you got Rampage coming out and it stars one of the actors from a TV show like Chicago Fire or whatever, right? So take one of the dudes from Chicago Fire and he's the star of this movie. What do you think the opening tracking would be? It wouldn't be 35 million. It would be lower than that. Much lower than that. But you put in The Rock and it's higher. So again, I believe the appeal of certain movie stars like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is not, it sets an automatic number, but what it does is it gives you a probability of having a percentage bigger opening than you would have done without him. And that's what the whole thing is here. What would the tracking of Rampage be if it was not starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? What if it wasn't starring him? What if it was starring, who's the guy from Dermel, the guy from Transformers, right? And I like him. But if he was starring in the movie, he's a recognizable name. But instead of tracking at 35, would probably be tracking at 28, 27, 25 maybe. Put Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in there, the tracking is bigger. So I think that's kind of the way it kind of pulls itself out. All right, guys, with that out of the way, let's take some time now to go to your live questions. You guys have been firing some live questions. I've got a bit of time here, but listen, if I don't get to one of your live questions before we end the show, then don't worry. I will take those live questions and make a companion video on Monday, and your questions that get sent in will be answered. If not here live, then on Monday on the companion video. All right, so let's get things rolling with this. And we start off with the first question from Jai Sashdev, who writes, Netflix should shift to Amazon Prime model for releasing movies, which I think will be more financially viable. If what you're talking about is how Amazon has their own film distribution system, but they actually put their movies in theaters first. Take, for instance, one of my big surprise movies of the past year, Kumail Nanjiani's The Big Sick. I love that movie. It's an Amazon original. But instead of just making their movie and then just putting it right on Amazon Prime, what they did was they gave it a theatrical release. And they probably made about $20 million in profit putting it out in the theater first. They had a very small marketing budget for it. They really relied on word of mouth, internet marketing and things like that. They didn't have a ton of television trailers or things like that. They were minimal on their marketing. They probably spent about $15 million on marketing. And they probably made about $20 million profit putting it out in the theaters, and then they put it on Amazon Prime. There are some people like a Christopher Nolan who believes, and Nolan has talked about this, that Netflix should adopt a similar kind of strategy of taking one of their original movies and giving it a theatrical release, not a 1 week run, but a legit theatrical release. Put it out in like 1,000 theaters. It doesn't have to be a huge wide release film like 3,000 theaters, but put it out in like 1,000 theaters, give it a legit run. And that will only help it if now it becomes a Netflix exclusive when it's done its theatrical run. So there are a lot of people, Jai, you're not the only one saying this. There are a lot of people who think Netflix should adopt the same philosophy as Amazon is because Amazon's having some success with it. It's an interesting thought. All right, next one. Luis Garza 1000 writes, people are speculating that Ariana Grande is doing the soundtrack for Deadpool 2 because her name appears in the trailer. She's actually a great vocalist. I have no knowledge of that whatsoever. But just because somebody does a song on a soundtrack doesn't mean they're doing the soundtrack. You know what I'm saying? So I doubt Ariana Grande is doing the soundtrack for Deadpool. She'll probably appear on a track or two. I wouldn't doubt that. I am not aware of her name popping up in the trailer. I didn't see her name in the trailer. I wasn't looking closely for it, to be honest with you. But maybe it's there, but I highly doubt she's doing the soundtrack for the movie. But hey, you never know, maybe. Last of Time writes, do you think Thanos was afraid of Odin? Thoughts? I think it is not a coincidence, and it could be wrong, I'm just speculating here. I don't think it's a coincidence that Thanos stayed in the shadows a little bit until after Odin died. I think everybody in the universe is afraid of Odin. Odin was the Allfather. And so I think there is going to be some reference. Again, I don't know this. I'm just speculating. I think there will be some reference in the movie, in Infinity War, to Odin's now gone. And with Odin gone, now it can come out. So I don't think it's coincidence that Odin finally comes out and confronts Thor's ship in the same movie that Odin dies. So yeah, I think he was afraid of Odin, or at least cautious of Odin. Let's put it that way. He was at least cautious of Odin. Hans Gruber writes, my sniper question yesterday was regarding your participation in a certain MCU movie. Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, shh. Let's not say anything else. We'll let other people try to figure that out, Hans. But good observation. Last of the Time Lords writes, I have a theory. I think Thanos travels back and alerts and alters time by killing Agent Carter. This Avengers Cap who seeks revenge by trying to kill Thanos, so he goes after him in the scene in the trailer. That theory doesn't hold up, because if Thanos goes back in time and kills Agent Carter, who I don't even think she's in the movie, but if he did do that, then Cap would have met her. So Cap wouldn't even be aware of her. So Cap wouldn't feel any sort of sense of taking revenge on her. He would have no idea who Agent Carter... If Thanos went back in time and killed Carter, Captain America wouldn't even know. Because he never would have met her. He never would have had an experience with her. Thus, he just wouldn't know. So that kind of defeats... you got to be careful when you're dealing with these time travel theories. But yeah, if Thanos goes back and kills Carter, then Captain America doesn't know Carter, doesn't know her from a hole in the wall, therefore would have no sense or need to get revenge for her when he doesn't even know who she is. So there's that. Kim Young-hoon writes, you say there is no downside to pre-selected seats, but since I am paying more for a better movie seat where I live, I think there is a downside. I disagree, because, look, if you're in one of those cities, there are a few theaters around the world where, like concert seats, if you sit in the best section, you pay more for the best section, right? But if you're living in a city where theaters are doing that, then you're paying more for the best section whether or not you get to pre-select your specific seat. Like, if you want to sit in the middle of the theater and they charge $18 for the dead center middle, then you're paying $18 for the dead center middle whether you get to pre-select your specific seat or not. So, I mean, it's a bit of a wash. I know where I live, for example, when they first started rolling out pre-selected seats, it was only in their premium theater. So I was paying more for a ticket to that. But now they've rolled it out to all the theaters in the building, and the price of the tickets haven't gone up. What was $12 a ticket in the regular theater, now it's pre-select seating and it's still $12 a ticket. Yes, in the AMC Prime, in the premium theater, they charge you more, but that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you get to pre-select your tickets. It has to do with the fact that it's the dual laser projection system, it's the Dolby Atmos sound system, it's big, thick, plush leather reclining seats. That's what you're paying for, not the pre-selection of seats. Because everywhere that I've been, and maybe your experience has been different than mine, all I can do is speak to my experience. Everywhere I've been, when a theater is converted to pre-selected seatings, their ticket prices haven't gone up. They've gone up for other reasons, but they've never gone up just for pre-selected seats. So I don't see that as a potential downside. I don't. The Impossible Something writes, Claire Foy has quickly become one of my favorite actresses. She's really good. How likely do you think it is she finally gets Oscar attention for First Man? Oh, it's impossible to say. We don't know if she's going to be even any good in First Man. I mean, look, if she, like any other actress, if she's in that movie and puts in an Oscar performance, she'll get Oscar attention. If she puts in just a really good performance, she won't get Oscar attention. But it's impossible to say, to even guess if she'll get Oscar attention until we see the movie. Once we see the movie and we see her performance, then we can start speculating about what her chances are or aren't as far as getting some Oscar buzz and Oscar attention. But until that happens, until we get a chance to actually do that, there's really nothing for us to speculate about at this point. So it's just impossible to say. History Soup writes, if they cast a younger actor like Armie Hammer as Batman, isn't that kind of rebooting since Batman says he's been doing it for decades? Yeah. I think the only way you go out and get a younger Batman, look, it all depends. Despite what's being said, there is a train of thought out there that the Matt Reeves Batman is kind of going to be in its own isolated bubble. They've said things to the contrary, but I don't know that we should believe them. If that's the case, then you can put in a younger Batman and it doesn't matter. If you are insisting that you're continuing on with the DCEU as it is, which I'm starting to doubt that they are, but if they do insist that they're continuing on with the DCEU as is, then you can't go out and get a 30-year-old Batman. You can't. You can't get a 27-year-old Batman. You can't get a 31-year-old Batman. You've already established in your DCEU that Batman has been doing this for decades. And if you're saying he's been doing it for decades, then you got to get a guy who's in his 40s to pick it up. And if you do go with a guy who's in his early 30s, then now it's a new Batman. Now it's a new history. Now it's a new timeline. And essentially, it's a reboot, really. But they may adopt a Fox philosophy of continuity, schmontinuity, and say whatever. It's still the DCEU, and it just so happens we've changed gears and said it's a younger Batman now, even though it's not consistent with the rest of what we've done. They might do that. Fox does it. Fox has had no problem with going continuity, schmontinuity, so maybe they can too. Let's see. KW Garrett 83 writes, I know you don't buy physical media, but I'm mad the damn Avatar sequels have denied me Blu-ray releases of True Lies and Abyss. Cameron said he has no time. Oh, that's interesting. I haven't heard about that. So because Cameron doesn't have time, why doesn't he just get other people to work on it? It's not like they're changing the movie. Again, I haven't heard of this, so this is all just new to me right now. If that's true, if they're saying no Blu-ray release of True Lies and Abyss because he has no time, then why not just let other people develop those Blu-ray releases then? I'm not really quite sure what the holdup is. But, hey, there you go. True Lies, by the way, my all-time favorite action film, by the way, and who doesn't love The Abyss? The Abyss is amazing. Time Lords writes, thoughts on the show Penny Dreadful? I thought the first season was interesting, and it went downhill for me after that. I thought, again, the first season was interesting. I checked it out late because everybody was raving about it. I thought the first season was good, and then it got kind of bad after that, to the point that I was just happy that the show ended, to be honest with you. Adam Griffin writes, I can only imagine expected to be the number 3 at the box office once again. A faith-based film overperforms. There seems to be a niche market for them now, much like Blumhouse or A24 does it. Low budget with decent returns. Yeah, I mean, well, it all depends. I mean, a lot of faith-based films come out and just can't get any theatrical attention whatsoever. But every once in a while, a niche one comes out. This one, for those of you who don't travel in Christian or gospel circles, I can only imagine might be arguably the most popular Christian contemporary song of all time. So the story behind that song will have some appeal for that market. And so, yeah, look, we've seen it over and over again. No matter what the market is, when you have a solid niche market, and if you can market to that market, the English language is really weird. Same word, two totally different meanings. If you can market to that market, then you can have some success. If you can do something with low budget and get that, you can have success. They're not for me, but there you go. Time Lords writes, will we get a Benicio del Toro Wolfman sequel? You already asked that same question the other day, man, and I answered it already. Let's see. Oh boy, hold on a second. Going back. Yep, I'm not going to get to all these questions today. Going back. Okay, here we go. Next one comes to us from Timeless, who writes, what is the better season of Daredevil, 1 or 2? It's kind of like asking what's the better Godfather, 1 or 2. They're both great. They're both amazing. For me, I'm going to go with Daredevil season 2, only because I thought they built well on all the foundation they did in Daredevil season 1. I thought the addition of Punisher in it was a nice added little dimension as well. My only frustration with season 2 is I'm forgetting the name of the blonde girl that worked in the law firm with Matt and Fozzie. But she was a love interest of Fozzie, and then she goes to being a love interest of Matt, and then she goes to being a love interest of Punisher. So I feel like the only reason she's there, they're using her in such a way that she's only there to be a love interest to somebody. And that's a little bit frustrating, but overall I'm going to go season 2. Nathan Oswald writes, do you think, I think you meant think, do you think Vin Diesel would have been as successful and well known if the Fast and Furious franchise had not existed? Yes. Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, because he was already rolling before Fast. Let me just pull something up here. Where to go? Vin Diesel, click. All right, look. So Fast and the Furious came out in 2001, which wasn't a huge monster hit or anything like that, but he was already in he was already the Iron Giant. He was already in Saving Private Ryan. He had already done Pitch Black, which they retitled The Chronicles of Riddick into Pitch Black. What else? He already did Boiler Room. He did those things. And then after Fast and Furious, he didn't even do Fast and Furious 2. And he did Knockaround Guys. He did Triple X, which was already in the planning stages before Fast and Furious came out. So Fast and the Furious is probably his most recognizable success. But he was already having some success before Fast and the Furious. So do I think he still would have been successful and well known? Yeah. Because even if he didn't do Fast and Furious, he already did Saving Private Ryan. He was doing Boiler Room. He did Pitch Black. He already had Triple X coming out. So all those things were already in place. So oddly enough, I still think we would know who Vin Diesel is today and he would still be a successful actor. I still think that. Who Flung Poo writes, time to admit that I call these donates deuces. Okay, yeah, give it a term, man. Give it a term. Kalis Menon writes, watch Goodfellas last night. Reminded me of Wolf of Wall Street a lot. Well, I mean, you got the same director, so that's a big thing. Goodfellas is such a good movie. So good. Now, there are even some people out there, I personally think they're clinically crazy, but there are people out there who even think Goodfellas is even better than Godfather. Again, I think those people are kind of crazy, but hey, all film's subjective, whatever. But that's how good Goodfellas is. That is how good Goodfellas is that some people would even dare compare it to The Godfather, which is nuts. And by the way, one of my favorite animated shows of all time, Animaniacs, they had an entire segment of that show, recurring segment of that show, based on the Goodfellas, which was the Goodfeathers, which are these 3 pigeons based off characters from the Goodfellas movie. How you go from a brutal, violent, R-rated adult movie and use those same characters in a kid's show, like the Goodfeathers, that was an amazing feat, something very ballsy of them to do, but I love the Goodfeathers. Okay, let's go on. Jake C. writes, could the team from Inception kill Freddy Krueger? Oh, that's an interesting question. Going within dreams. I don't know. Freddy Krueger's kind of invincible in the dream world. Once you're in the dream, you got to pull. Wasn't the whole thing about Freddy that you had to pull him out of the dream world to make him vulnerable? So fascinating question, Jake. But I'll take the no on that. I don't think they could beat Freddy in the dream world. The Insight writes, what kind of home setup do you use? For what? For my home theater, for my gaming, for my broadcasting? You got to be a little bit more specific, man. I'm not exactly sure what it is you're talking about. 80s Nostalgia Guy writes, any news of Captain Power reboot? I haven't heard anything myself. I mean, for all I know, there might be some news out there about it, but I haven't heard anything. ZOMG Ruler writes, best use of a Springsteen song in a movie? For me, I'm assuming you mean Philadelphia. Streets of Philadelphia. I don't know. I'd have to sit down and actually go through and think about all the different movies that have used Springsteen songs. Not something I can answer off the top of my head, unfortunately. Purple 100 writes, hey, John, how likely do you think we will get a new main character in Avengers 3 or 4, either in a small or large role, like Black Panther in Civil War? Well, I mean, the only real chance for that, because look, here's the thing. They have so many established characters they have to deal with. Like, so many. I don't know that there's any room in this movie for another brand new character, other than Thanos himself, for another brand new character to come in and take significant screen time. Like, Black Panther had a good amount of screen time in Civil War. And while there were a bunch of characters in Civil War, it was nothing compared to how many characters are in Infinity War. So I just don't know how much room there is. Now, could you get a cameo from somebody? Like, it's possible a Captain Marvel does cameo in this film. I doubt Captain Marvel has a big significant role in this film, but it is possible she cameos or something like that, sure. But on the same level that Black Panther had in Civil War, I just think the clock is against us. There's no time. There's just no time to do that. So I think it's highly unlikely. Anything is possible with the MCU. I just think it's highly unlikely. All right, next question comes to us from Oliver Jamie, who writes, hey, John, has Anne made you watch Filipino movies? I don't even know that Anne watches Filipino movies. to be honest with you. I remember this one trip, Anne's mom and dad took a trip to the Philippines, and they came back once, and I believe, if I'm remembering it right, they came back like with a big stack of Filipino movies, and I don't think we watched any of them. So, no, Anne has not made me watch any Filipino movies because, no, I don't even think she watches Filipino movies, to be honest. So I'm not even aware of any of them. So, no, although I will say this. We were just over at the AMC Burbank 16 a couple of weeks ago, and we noticed they were playing at the AMC Burbank 16 like not one, but two Filipino movies. Now that you mention it, that brings that back to mind. I can't remember what the name of those movies were. Something about a girl. That narrows it down, Campea, thanks. It was something about a girl. I can't remember, but it's funny that you mentioned that because now I got to think about that. Let's see. Next up, Dirk Diggler writes, hey, come on, Giovanni. Let's get the party started for your Star Wars The Last Jedi commentary. Yeah, I hadn't even really thought about it. It's tough doing a commentary on your own. It's tough. It's even tough doing it with just two people. Like, because if you're doing it with just a couple of people, there's so many just dead stretches of silence. I don't know that I can talk through an entire 2-hour thing of it. But, maybe I should do it. I don't know. Maybe I'll give it a shot. We'll see. Anthony R. writes, how is Anne? Any signs of heat vision yet? Yeah, so I put up on social media the other day, Anne went in and got the LASIK surgery done. She's been wanting to get the LASIK eye surgery done forever. I mean, because she has pretty bad vision without her glasses or contacts, but she gets tired of wearing the glasses and tired of having to put in contacts every day. So we finally did it. We said this was the year. She went and got in it. And I put up a social media thing saying, this is it. Anne's going in. She's going to get lasers shot into her eyes. I wonder if she's going to get superpowers. No signs yet of superpowers. Not yet. Chris Warden writes, thanks for articulating your point so well yesterday about our differing opinions about the Star Wars prequels. Your warm candor is so refreshing in the sometimes toxic world of online movie punditry and fandom. Well, thanks a lot, Chris. I appreciate that. And it's, like, for those of you who don't know, what Chris is referring to is, it may have been Chris, it may have been somebody else, I can't remember specifically, brought up the fact that they like the prequels. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong. If you like the prequels, that's great, man. All film's subjective. If you ask me, I hate them, but that doesn't mean you should. And that doesn't negate or invalidate your experience with them. That's why when people tell me they like the prequels, I go, that's great. I'm not going to poo-poo on you for liking something I don't like. They affected you differently than they affected me, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. And I think just that's the way, when you don't understand that, that becomes the root of toxic fandom, which we see a lot of, especially in Star Wars and in more especially even in comic book films. Anthony R. writes, are going to get Final Fantasy 15 for PC. I think you probably meant, are you going to get Final Fantasy 15 for PC? You don't have to play the others to understand. They're all standalone games. I've played a number of Final Fantasy movies. I haven't played one in a number of years. Probably not. Probably not going to get Final Fantasy 15. I have a number of other games I really should be catching up on. I don't have anywhere near the amount of gaming time that I'd like. As a matter of fact, I started getting into Fortnite, and I played it for 2 days, and I haven't played it in like 4 days now, just because I have no time. So I got to be really selective with the very, very rare opportunity I get to actually sit down and play games these days. I got to be careful. And to be honest with you, Final Fantasy 15 isn't high on my list. I got to be honest with you, it's not high on my list right now. Tasty Dash writes, any idea when the Infinity War review embargo will drop? Usually we get early Twitter reactions around a month before, which would be next week. Well, I mean, right now they haven't done any screenings of it. So before we have any idea about when a review embargo will drop, we have to first know when there's going to be a screening. Once Disney lets us know when a screening is, they also let us know when the review embargo is. And they also let us know if there will be a social media embargo as well. Because sometimes they don't let you tweet about it until the review embargo is up. Sometimes they do. So it really all depends. But as of right now, there haven't been any screenings for Infinity War. Haven't been notified yet of any screenings for Infinity War. Once we do, that's when we'll know the embargo will lift. And I will let you guys know as soon as I find out. You know what? As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to email my Disney guy today and ask him if they got any information on that. Pedro Garcia writes, So have you seen Eurotrip? Matt Damon cameo. I did see Eurotrip. I don't remember the Matt Damon cameo, to be honest with you. That's intriguing. I know. Well, no. Nothing will make me go back and watch Eurotrip. I was almost going to say, I got to go watch Eurotrip again to see if I can find that cameo. But no, I don't hate myself that much. So no, I'm not going to go back and watch that. But I'll be honest with you, I totally don't even remember Matt Damon's cameo. That's how good of a cameo it was. Moonwalker Boy 101 writes, what do you think will be beat first, if ever? Avatar's worldwide box office or The Force Awakens' domestic opening weekend? I think if one of them are going to fall, the first one that will fall is the opening weekend one. That's the easy. I mean, they're both monumental records, but I think the easier one to beat is the opening weekend one. That Avatar worldwide box office record, I don't think that's getting touched for a long time. I mean, hey, who knows? Who knows, right? Infinity War could come out and beat it. I doubt it, but possible. Certainly possible. But I think if anything has a chance, which one of these two has a chance of falling first, I think chances are The Force Awakens falls first because that's the easier one out of the two. I think. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I think. All right. Ginger Overlord writes, will you be reviewing the Scooby Natural crossover episode? Super hyped. Yeah. I haven't been reviewing Supernatural just because nobody watches me review Supernatural, so I don't do it. But I don't care. I will probably review the Scooby Natural trailer where Supernatural is crossing over with the animated Scooby-Doo. The trailer for it was freaking hilarious. I mean, whether it's Dean trying to bang Daphne, or like in the midst of a Scooby-Doo cartoon, all of a sudden you hear Dean, son of a bitch, in a Scooby-Doo cartoon. I thought the trailer was everything I wanted that trailer to be. I cannot wait to watch that damn thing. So yeah, I'll probably be reviewing that. Superman writes, biggest geek boner when I saw Cap stop. Oh, no kidding, man. I mean, that's a geek erection to the power of 20. That's the only moment. Don't get me wrong, I loved the entire trailer. But I don't often squeal while watching trailers. And that shot, when Thanos goes in at Cap and Cap stops his hand, I squealed. I audibly out loud squealed. That shot, man, was just the shot. Okay, time for just a few more here. Anthony R. writes, I don't think Tony is dying, but what if I'm wrong and he is dying and the reason Cap was fighting Thanos is because he was avenging his friend? No, well, Cap is fighting Thanos because Thanos is there to destroy half the world. That's why he's fighting Thanos. It's not like Captain America would be going, let Thanos destroy half the world. Oh, wait, he killed Tony? Besides, we don't even have any visual evidence yet that Tony ever even gets to Wakanda. So he's fighting Thanos to save the world. That's why he's fighting him. So I don't think he needs an extra reason to fight him, Anthony. I'm gonna differ with you on this one, my friend. John Wiles writes, all the talk about Man of Steel made me rewatch it again. Wow, better the second time. Such a great lesson on one's personal character development. Hashtag next snap. Yeah, man, I just, first of all, I am one of the few people that I loved Man of Steel from the first viewing. But even for me, somebody who started out loving the movie, for me, I find I appreciate it more and more with each repeating viewing. And honestly, there are even a few other people I have made sit down and watch Man of Steel with me again that maybe didn't love Man of Steel, and then they watch it again, they're like, oh wow, now I love this movie. It's one of those movies that just gets better with repeat viewings, I think. So I'm really glad, John, that you went and gave it another shot. I'm really glad that you did that. And yeah, I mean, terrific character development in that, I think. All right, Brandon Torres writes, have you checked out Unsane yet? I really loved it. No, to be honest with you, I have no interest in it, to be honest with you. The whole gimmick of, oh, it's all shot on an iPhone and blah, blah, the gimmick of that just kind of repulses me a little bit. If they weren't using that to market the film, maybe I would have been interested, but no, I haven't seen it yet. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have any plans to see it. Maybe one of these days I'll sit down when it's on home video or something, maybe I'll pop it on, but I don't have any interest in seeing it right now. John Wiles writes again, did you watch Ultraman as a kid? I did and loved it. Yes, it was Godzilla. I never did. Never watched Ultraman as a kid. Don't know why I didn't. But no, I never did watch that one, so I can't really comment on it. Brandon Torres writes, think Tomb Raider is the best video game movie? I do. It might be. I need to simmer on it for a little while longer. but it is possible I think it might be the best video game movie. I mean, my favorite video game movie is still Mortal Kombat. It's so cheesy. I love watching Mortal Kombat, but yeah, I think Tomb Raider might be the best one so far. It might be the best one so far. Adrian Watson writes, "Hey John, do you think DC is adopting the Fox/Marvel philosophy of continuity schmontinuity with the New Gods and Joker standalone announcements?" Well, not necessarily, because it's not continuity schmontinuity if you're not even saying they're in the same continuity. Like, if you're saying if you're making this Joker movie and you say it's a totally different universe, then that's not really continuity schmontinuity. Like, when you make films and you kind of allude to them being in the same universe, and suddenly Sabretooth is a completely different character than Sabretooth was in the last film, with a different actor and a different backstory and all that kind of stuff, that's continuity schmontinuity. If you're doing a DCU and then you say, hey, we're doing another movie with this character, but it's in a totally separate reality, totally separate universe, that's not really continuity schmontinuity. But as we addressed earlier in the show, I mean, they could adopt a continuity schmontinuity attitude and try to change things up in the DCEU without officially saying they're rebooting the DCEU. It's possible they could do that. I don't know if that's the best route for them, but it's an option. Let's see. ZCM Zombie writes, "Did you see Bill Skarsgård in the Deadpool 2 trailer?" Yes, saw him sitting there behind Domino. So yeah, it's funny because a lot of people started mentioning Bill Skarsgård sightings, and everybody got all excited about that. So yes. It would have been cool if he was in clown makeup. Durama1 writes, "Do you think Marvel will make a Thunderbolts movie with Red Hulk, Winter Soldier, and if the deal goes through, add Deadpool?" No. That's a little too far-fetched. I don't think they'll do that. It's interesting. It's a little bit of a deep cut. It's an interesting idea, but no, if you're asking me, do I think they'll do that? I don't think they'll do that. You're not asking me whether I think they should or shouldn't. You asked me if I think they will, and I don't think they will. Carson Whaley writes, "Are you a Tarantino fan? What's his best movie?" Somebody just asked me that yesterday. Yes, I am a Tarantino fan. My favorite movie of Tarantino is Django. Django is my favorite one. Several are fantastic, but Django's the one that just resonates with me the most. Adrian Watson. Oh, I lost Adrian Watson. Where'd she go? There she goes. By the way, guys, if I haven't made it clear, don't send any more questions. I might be able to actually finish off all the ones that we got here. I'm not positive about that, but let's see if we can. Adrian Watson writes, "Fox/Marvel practically rebooted while keeping Hugh Jackman. I'm just saying, thanks, have a good day." Well, no, Hugh Jackman's already said he has no desire to come back. He's not going to be Wolverine anymore. I think there's a chance we see him as a funny cameo in Deadpool 2, but Hugh Jackman coming back, look, they want to keep him. Of course they want to keep him, but he has no desire to come back. He's made that very, very clear. We're not going to see Hugh Jackman again as Wolverine. ZCM Zombie writes, "Are you a big fan of Dennis Quaid? Do you like the cheesy movie Frequency?" Oh, I like Frequency. I didn't think it was all that cheesy. It even got spun off into its own TV show for a while. I don't know if it made it past one season. Maybe it did. I'm not sure. But yes, I like Dennis Quaid. I always felt really bad for Dennis Quaid when Meg Ryan dumped him for Russell Crowe. I always felt bad for him. But yeah, I think Dennis Quaid's a great actor. I love seeing him and stuff. I'd love to see him in more stuff, to be honest with you. And, somebody mentioned that whole Faith movie, I Can Only Imagine earlier. Dennis Quaid's in that. He's one of the stars of that movie, if I'm remembering that correctly. ZCM writes, "Have you seen Under the Silver Lake trailer with Andrew Garfield?" Yes, I saw it last night. It played in front of Isle of Dogs when I went to go see Isle of Dogs. Interesting looking trailer. Can't say it made me pumped to see it, though. And I'm a big Andrew Garfield fan. Huge Andrew Garfield fan. But it's an interesting trailer. But if the job of a trailer is to get you more excited to see a movie, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it didn't do that. It did not make me excited to see that movie. It's interesting, it's artful, but at the same time, it didn't connect with me. So I'm not a big fan of the trailer, to be honest. Andrew Kiernan writes, "If the theaters closed permanently, would you upgrade to 4K then? Also, can you answer me why some movies do good and others don't?" Well, I'm not going to address that. That's a 5-hour dissertation conversation. But as far as will I upgrade then? No, because the 4K, my whole reason for not adopting 4K right now has nothing to do with movie theaters. It has to do with, it's still a relatively new technology. In about 2 years, it's going to be like 1/3 the price that it is now. My current movie home theater setup is beautiful, with just a beautiful 1080 TV. My movies look spectacular on it. I love it. I feel no need to upgrade at any point, especially when I can wait just 2 years and get everything, like get all the adopted 4K technology for like 1/3 of the price that it is right now. But on top of that, I'm not convinced. I believe there's a chance that within the next 2 years, 4K is going to be passé and we're going to be talking 8K. Don't laugh. I mean, there's already discussions about crap like that. And that the 4K window is going to be a relatively short window. So why would I invest a whole bunch, like thousands and thousands of dollars into 4K stuff right now when in just 2 years I'm going to have to upgrade it again? So I'm more than comfortable waiting a couple years. And if in like the next year and a half, 2 years, if 4K is still the standard and it looks like it's going to be the standard for a little while, and it's now 1/3 of the price, like I'm going to spend $600 on a TV, sorry, not 600, but I'm going to spend $1,000 on a TV that I would have spent $4,000 on today, then I will get the upgrade stuff. But it has nothing to do with the movie theaters, to be honest with you. Let's see. Next one comes to us from Rafi, who writes, actually, Manning has more MVPs and passing records than Brady. I don't think that's true. I think Brady's better, but you said yesterday Brady has more MVPs and records. I still think he has more records. It really all depends. I'd have to go digging into it, but I think he does. Could be wrong. And the last question of the day. Oh my God, I actually got through all the questions today. This is amazing. John, you've said that Affleck's Batman had never made a vow to never kill. I theorized that he had, but abandoned the vow after Robin was murdered by the Joker. Thoughts? Possible. I mean, they can retcon it. All I can say is, as of right now, because what I get frustrated is when people try to take rules from the comic book and apply it to the movies. The movies and the comic books are two separate things. And when people complain, Batman doesn't kill, this ain't the comic book, folks. This is the movie. And in this movie, yes, he does. And it's not like he only kills people in combat. Like, look, no one complains when the Avengers killed thousands of people or whatever. But anyway, is it possible they could later say he does that? Sure, they could say anything later. They could remold the history of him for sure. All we're saying is that as of right now, from the information we've been given, this Batman that we have in this cinematic universe never made a vow to not kill. Now, in a later movie, they might reveal that in his history, in his past, he did. But cinematically speaking, from all the information we've gotten from the movies we've seen him in, he has never made that vow. So he's totally free to kill fools who are trying to kill him. Look, some dude pulls a gun on Batman, he's forfeited his life, as far as I'm concerned. You make it clear I'm here to kill Batman, then you've forfeited your life. Batman can kill you. And finally, my brother-in-law, Ray Ora, is saying, go back to sleep, man, which I might take him up on that. By the way, Ray, we're coming out to Corona a little bit later today, so get ready to go to Chili's. All right, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Banging right on the 1 hour mark. Absolutely perfect. Thank you so much, you guys, for participating in the conversation today. You guys, of course, keep the conversation going, and you support this channel at the same time, so thank you so much for that. All right, guys, that'll do it for me for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for joining me. My name, of course, is John Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.